The world is covered by many overlapping, competing, and complementary alliances, blocs, unions, and organizations. Some are vehicles for deep political and economic integration, some bring together allies for military cooperation, and others involve rivals seeking dialogue and diffusion, with mixed results. In this video, we're going to run through and explain as many of these groupings as we can, laying them out in this hopefully helpful diagram to show you just how connected the world is. And if you like the design we end up with, then it might be available as a poster. Actually, it is. I don't know why I'm being so coy about it. Let's start with perhaps the best known and most integrated global bloc, the European Union, a 27-member political and economic union. Now, most EU member states are also part of the Schengen area, the largest free travel area in the world, which also includes several non-EU countries: Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway. Those latter four countries also form the European Free Trade Association, a separate free trade area whose member states also participate in the European single market. Another symbol of European integration is the Euro area, or Eurozone, the 20 European countries that have adopted the euro as their currency. In fact, only 7 EU member states are not in the Eurozone. Within Europe, there are also several smaller regional groupings, like the Nordic Council, a cooperative body for the 5 Nordic countries, the Baltic Assembly, a similar organization for the 3 Baltic countries, the Visegrad Group, comprising of the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia, and the Organization of Black Sea Economic Cooperation, comprising of 13 countries surrounding the Black Sea. The most expansive European organization, though, is the Council of Europe, which is an international organization unrelated to the EU, which aims to uphold human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Virtually the entire continent are members too, and that includes the UK, Turkey, Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. Only the Vatican City, Belarus, and Russia aren't members, with Russia quitting the Council shortly after invading Ukraine. Moving over to the Americas, there's another continent-wide organization, the Organization of American States. The OAS, which promotes cooperation in the Americas, includes every nation in North, Central, and South America, and the Caribbean, except for Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, with Cuba once describing the OAS as an instrument of imperialist domination. There's also the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, which does actually contain, without exception, every nation in the 2 regions of its name. On a smaller scale, but described as the oldest surviving integration movement in the developing world, is the Caribbean Community. All independent English-speaking island nations in the region are CARICOM members, as are Belize and Guyana, and also some newer non-Anglophone countries, Suriname and Haiti. Spanish-speaking Central American countries have also pushed for their own regional integration, with the main political institution being the elected Central American Parliament, of which Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and the Dominican Republic are members. North America has its own free trade agreement too, known as USMCA, or the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which is the successor to NAFTA and one of the world's largest free trade zones. South America, meanwhile, has a whole load of overlapping alliances and blocs. The most prominent is the Southern Common Market, or Mercosur, sometimes likened to a less integrated South American EU, comprising of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and new member Bolivia, while Venezuela has been indefinitely suspended since 2016. Another South American trade bloc is the Andean Community, made up of Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Then there's the regional integration initiative called the Pacific Alliance, comprising of Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. South America also has 2 competing, but somehow overlapping regional cooperation organizations, called the Union of South American Nations, or USAN, and the Forum for the Progress of Integration of South America, or PROSUR. USAN was originally founded by then Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez in the 2000s, with the aim of countering US influence in the region. but it has since fallen from 12 members to just 5. Prosur was then set up in 2019 as a sort of anti-Venezuelan alternative to USAN, and currently has 8 members, with Brazil, Guyana and Suriname actually in both blocks. Anyway, let's cross the Atlantic to Africa now, where the African Union is the main continent-wide organization, promoting unity, integration and cooperation. However, 6 former members, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon and Sudan, all remain suspended following recent military coups. Africa's geographic regions also have their own respective regional organizations, with varying degrees of economic and political integration. For example, the Southern African Development Community, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, the Economic Community of Central African States, the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa, the Arab Maghreb Union, and the Economic Community of West African States. The latter, known as ECOWAS, has been diminished in size since it suspended 4 of its members after military coups. 3 of those, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, have since formed the Alliance of Sahel States, a confederation with a primarily military and defensive purpose, but with views to become a more political and economic grouping. Over in Asia, perhaps the best known political and economic bloc is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, which includes 10 member states from the region, i.e. all of them, apart from East Timor, which only has observer status. ASEAN also has some overlapping members with the Mekong-Gangja Corporation, named after the 2 rivers in the region, which aims to boost economic and cultural cooperation between India, Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam. Again, this overlaps with the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, or just BIMSTEC, which comprises of 7 members surrounding the Bay of Bengal. This also has a considerable overlap with the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, which, like BIMSTEC, includes India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal and Bhutan, but also adds Pakistan, Afghanistan and the Maldives. Elsewhere in Asia, and reaching into Europe, is the Eurasian Economic Union, comprising of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Armenia and Belarus, with the goal of boosting economic integration in the former Soviet region and building a common market much like the EU has. The Eurasian Economic Union actually originated out of the Commonwealth of Independent States, or CIS, a still existing Russian-led organization that formed out of the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The CIS has also formed the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is a military alliance involving Russia, Belarus, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Armenia, although the latter intends to withdraw after falling out with Russia. Also covering parts of Central Asia and further afield is the Organization of Turkic States, which, as the name suggests, is an intergovernmental organization aimed at boosting cooperation and development between states home to Turkic peoples. Its members are Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan and Turkey. Then, down in the Persian Gulf is the Gulf Cooperation Council, comprising of the 6 Gulf monarchies: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE and Oman. It's a political and economic union with a common market, but it also has a military arm called the Peninsular Shield Force. Aiming to bring together and coordinate all of these different Asian regional organizations is the Asia Cooperation Dialogue, of which most of Asia is a member, with 35 individual member states. Another large continent grouping is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which also aims to boost cooperation and promote peace, although both the ACD and SCO contain countries that don't always get along, like India, Pakistan and China. Over in the Pacific region, the main regional cooperation organization is the Pacific Islands Forum, bringing together 14 sovereign Pacific Island states, as well as several territories, to work together on the big issues facing the region, like climate change and geostrategic competition. There's also the Pacific Community, a more science and development-oriented organization that also has the US, UK and France as full members, as well as the territories in the region. So that takes us onto the more intercontinental groupings. For instance, the Commonwealth, officially the Commonwealth of Nations, which is a 56-member association of nations linked mostly by their history and language. in that the vast majority of its members are former parts of the British Empire, although a few members like Gabon, Rwanda and Mozambique don't have historical links to the British Empire. NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is probably the world's best-known military alliance. Established during the early days of the Cold War, the US-led alliance has now grown to 32 members across Europe and North America. While NATO's primary foe is Russia, other US-involved alliances aim to counter China. For example, AUKUS, featuring Australia, the UK and US, is a security partnership centered on collaboration over military tech. These three countries are also part of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, also featuring Canada and New Zealand. And the US and Australia, plus Japan and India, are also members of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or Quad, a security forum designed to counter rising Chinese influence. A more high-profile intergovernmental forum, though, is the G7, which brings together the US, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan to coordinate on global policy. Now, it used to be the G8, but Russia was expelled in 2014 following their annexation of Crimea. Russia is still a member of the G20, though, which includes the G7 plus many more of the world's largest economies, both industrialized and developing. Several of these countries are also members of BRICS, whose name is now a little out of date since it's expanded beyond just Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, with it often considered to be the main rival geopolitical bloc to the G7 and a forum for the global south. While many consider the BRICS significance to be overstated, OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is undoubtedly geopolitically important. Its core 12 members are some of the world's leading oil producers, from Venezuela to Nigeria to Saudi Arabia, and OPEC brings them together to coordinate production and influence the global oil market. Meanwhile, spanning North Africa, East Africa, and the Middle East is the Arab League, founded in 1945 to enable close cooperation on all matters between its 22 members, which unsurprisingly come from the Arab world. Now, Syria was actually recently readmitted to the Arab League after more than a decade of suspension, but it still remains suspended from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation for the Assad regime's human rights abuses during the Syrian civil war. The OIC aims to be the collective voice of the Muslim world, with its 56 members either Muslim majority or with large Muslim populations, hailing from South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. Finally, we get to the United Nations, the world's largest international organization, which in its own words is where the world's nations can gather together, discuss common problems, and find shared solutions. It has 193 member states, though there are two non-member observer states, Palestine and the Holy See, aka the Vatican City. So there you have it, every major alliance in the world. And if you like this, then you can consider picking up a copy of the poster. Yep, we made a physical version of this absolutely wild chart, allowing you to display a little TLDR in your house and continue to explore how interconnected the world really is. We spent a ton of time trying to get this design right, and it comes in 3 different colors, so I hope you appreciate quite how beautifully chaotic it looks. If you want a copy, then you can buy it over on our store, and you can get 20% off all of our posters by using the code ALLIANCE. Thank you so much for your support, because projects like this really do help to fund our journalism.